So, blended families, huh? It's really interesting how merging two different parenting worlds can create both amazing opportunities and some
Yeah,
significant challenges.
absolutely. It's like two different rule books colliding at times. What caught your attention about this topic?
Well, one of the key things is that in a blended family, you're not just mixing households, you're mixing parenting styles, expectations, and even past histories. It's like it's like trying to blend two completely different recipes into one dish, and sometimes they just don't mix right away.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm thinking about the fact that children in these families have to adjust to new step parents and different discipline methods. How do you see that affecting them?
Oh, it really does impact them significantly. The kids might feel torn between loyalty to their biological parent and the new partner, who might bring an entirely different approach to discipline and warmth. It's almost like they're caught in the middle of an unspoken tug of war.
Absolutely. And speaking of discipline, the input touches on the four main parenting styles. I mean, who would have thought that authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved parenting could define so much of the dynamics in step families?
Totally. It's interesting because, according to Diana Baumrind, the authoritative style, where parents are firm yet nurturing, seems to set a great precedent. But then, you have the authoritarian style, which is super rigid, and that often leaves kids respectful, but not necessarily happy or confident.
Right. And then the permissive style can lead to a lack of boundaries, while the uninvolved style could be downright damaging. But how do you think these styles play out when they collide in a blended family setting?
Well, it's like, when you have one parent who, say, is very strict and another who is super lenient, there's an inevitable clash. Take, for instance, the case of Rick and Claire. They really illustrate that conflict. Rick, coming from a military background, believes in strict obedience, while Claire feels guilty about being too harsh because of her past divorce and her more forgiving nature.
Yeah, that's a solid example. Exactly. And it creates a lot of friction, not just between them, but also for the kids who get caught in the crossfire. Sometimes I wonder if having such different styles could ever truly be harmonized.
So it's tricky, right? But one of the highlights from the discussion is the focus on open communication. When Rick and Claire decided to not criticize in front of the kids and even arranged a meeting with their ex-partners, they made some real steps toward unification.
Yeah, That meeting with the ex-partner sounds like a tough but necessary move. Is it really common, though, to involve exes in the conversation?
Well, it's not common practice for every family, but in blended families it can be essential. After all, the children are stepping across multiple households, so a collaborative approach, agreeing on basic things like pick-up or drop-off routines, can help reduce the conflict.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like setting a unified ground rule, like agreeing that texts are only for logistical messages. It might seem small, but it can make a big difference in reducing heated exchanges, right?
Right on. And the input also emphasized 6 practical methods to handle parenting style differences. Things like discussing discipline strategies with your partner, setting clear rules for the kids, and establishing consistent communication guidelines with co-parents.
Sure, those communication guidelines sound golden. But sometimes I wonder, don't you think that expecting former partners to cooperate seamlessly might be a bit idealistic?
I get your point, and it does seem like a tall order. But if you think about it, when all parties focus on what's best for the kids, even hard conversations can lead to cooperative solutions. I mean, it's not always perfect, but it's a path forward.
Yep, true. Yeah, kids' well-being often drives people to put aside personal differences. Speaking of, did you notice the part about step-parents and their unique role in disciplining?
Oh, absolutely. The input really sheds light on that dilemma. Step-parents often face the challenge of being seen as outsiders, which makes it hard for them to enforce discipline until they establish trust. It's like they're expected to jump into a role without the kids really giving them a chance,
Right, exactly. I can see that, and it reminds me of something. Wasn't there a study mentioned by Patricia L. Papernow? The idea that connection should come before correction?
Yes, exactly. Once the step-parent proves that they genuinely care and connect, then slowly moving into an authoritative disciplinary role makes a lot more sense. Imagine it's like planting a garden. You need to prepare the soil and let roots establish before you really start trimming and shaping.
Great analogy. I love that imagery. But let me ask, what about the point regarding parental unity? How critical is it to present a unified front And can it sometimes backfire if the styles are too contradictory?
That's a really interesting angle. Presenting a united front is vital because it provides stability for the kids. However, if the conflict is bottled up, it might lead to underlying resentment. It's important to balance unity with honest, behind-the-scenes discussions about differences so that frustrations
Right.
don't spill
I
over.
agree. Exactly. So rather than forcing immediate harmony, it's about gradually aligning on key issues. And speaking of gradual, what about the idea that love and trust develop over time in these families?
Yeah, I really like that notion. It's a reminder that instant bonding isn't realistic. Instead, patience and consistent effort over time can transform a fraught household into a caring unit. It's like, when you think about building a house, you need a strong foundation before you can really enjoy the structure.
Absolutely. Totally. And in that vein, the article also points out that having an us against the problem mindset can be extremely helpful. That perspective shifts focus away from internal battles and toward solving external challenges.
Yes, that really stood out to me. It's a powerful shift from us versus each other to us versus the problem that not only eases the tension but also reinforces that everyone is on the same team.
Exactly. One thing I was wondering about, how do you think couples can practically implement these strategies in everyday life? I mean, for instance, in the heat of a disagreement.
Great question. It really calls for proactive communication. For example, having set rules for text and in-person conversations can prevent impulsive outbursts. Also, scheduling regular check-ins might help ensure everyone is on track and feels heard. It's like having a weekly family meeting, but without it feeling too formal.
Definitely, yes. And that would include both the biological parents and step-parents, right? Not leaving anyone out of the conversation.
Exactly. Making sure that everyone, including co-parents, is on board is crucial for a cohesive approach. Of course, that requires vulnerability and mutual respect, which can be challenging if past wounds aren't fully healed.
True, absolutely. It sounds like, in a way, every blended family needs its own personalized manual, kind of like a recipe that evolves with every new ingredient added.
Yes, exactly. And much like a recipe, you sometimes have to adjust the seasoning. The key is flexibility. Parents may have to, compromise on things like screen time, bedtimes, and even daily routines. All of that contributes to the overall harmony.
Right. Speaking of compromise, do you think there are any pitfalls in always trying to find common ground? I mean, what if the differences are, fundamentally incompatible?
That's a fair point. There can be a risk of diluting each parent's core values if they try too hard to compromise. It's important to identify non-negotiable elements versus areas where there's room to maneuver, so that the unique needs of both parents and children are respected.
I see what you mean. Right, and that brings us back to the idea of establishing your family's specific guidelines, while still being flexible enough to adapt. It seems like a constant, evolving process.
Exactly. It's an ongoing journey. And the strategies discussed, like discussing parenting styles openly, setting rules together, and even involving co-parents where necessary, are tools that can really help smooth out the bumps along the road.
Yeah, really true. It's almost like these tools are a sort of toolkit designed specifically for the complexities of blended families. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Each tool addresses a different part of the challenge: communication, rule setting, respect for differing styles, and so on. It's the thoughtful combination of these strategies that can truly make a difference.
Absolutely, yes. I really appreciate this deep dive. It shows that even though the road may be rocky, there's a blueprint for creating a supportive, loving family environment in a blended situation. Thanks for unpacking all these details.
No problem. It's a reminder that while blended families come with unique challenges, with patience, open communication, and a willingness to compromise, it's totally possible to build a strong, united home.
Yes, indeed. And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground today on this topic. Here's to all the families out there working hard to blend their unique stories into one.
Exactly. Cheers to that. And to embracing the journey with all its ups and downs.